I'm letting them in now.
Let's do it. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I see we have these 41 people here, so I think that's a good place to start. I think everyone knows me, but if you don't, I'm Katie Howard. I'm the Board of Education District 1 rep. Great to have you all here today for my October community coffee, which I know my schedule's been a little all over the place. So thank you for joining me again so soon after my last one. Also, we have Board Member Jones and Board Member Olympiadis. I appreciate them being on the call today, as well as Keisha Copeland and B from Family Engagement. And B, forgive me for not saying your last name. Like, I'm not looking at your name, and I know you so well, B, so I apologize. But they're wonderful to be here, and I'll let them share a couple updates in a minute. But I'll go ahead and just get us started. So we had our board meeting on Monday, and I hope for those who didn't watch live, you go back and watch on Facebook after the fact, and then look at our progress monitoring portion. In particular, we measured our interim goals. That's a breakdown looking at map data around literacy. So really, I won't go into all of it right now, but I encourage you all to please check out our discussion on that information. And it is great to have that map information and the deeper dive into what's going on, the realities for our students. And that's what we're driving towards. And that's how we hold the superintendent accountable and provide the support we must provide as a board to make sure that our children are growing and know what they need to know to be successful and have the supports they need to reach their fullest potential. That's on us too. And also I'm sending out now in the form of MailChimp my updates, which that might go into some people's junk box, and I apologize, but it's a better tool to get it out to a larger group of people. If you'd like to be added to that list, please email me. You can reach me at my APS email. You can reach Keith. Please let me know, and I'm happy to add you. I included a link to the agenda for the board meeting on Monday and the progress monitoring report. And I'm looking forward to those reports being put on our webpage with the board so you can easily access that information. And just also want to always emphasize that progress monitoring is not about like a hammer approach and going data, data, data. It is a flashlight to say what is really going on for our students. Like, if we don't know that as a Board of Education, then we can't do our jobs right. And we can't hold our superintendent accountable with the right supports. And we have resources in APS, we have great things happening, but we've got to make sure we're connecting all these pieces and really supporting our kids and meeting their needs where they are across the board. And we want growth for every single student and a deeply enriching educational experience, which we absolutely can and do provide, but there is always, and there is a lot of work to be done. So that's my update on the board meeting. And some fun stuff going on I want to mention before we get into questions and more conversation. So tonight is the Jackson Cluster Night. I know everyone was largely disappointed, as was I, with things not being able to happen last weekend, but understanding that decisions are made with an abundance of caution and completely respect that. But you know, the weather, it's a forecast. But the Jackson Cluster Night was always scheduled for tonight. So I'm looking forward to being with all the awesome feeder schools and to Maynard Jackson High School, Benteen, Barack Michelle Obama Academy, Parkside, Toomer, all these great schools, and King, of course, Middle School, that feed into Jackson eventually, and all of us coming together and being on the field at the stadium over at Midtown, Henderson. So that's, and I think the game starts at 8. So If y'all can make it, please come. I know there's some buses that'll be taking some kids and families as well. Also want to plug the Carver Block Party that will happen October 22nd from 10 to 2 at Pittsburgh Yards. Y'all, this is going to be huge. Please come, even if you're not in the Carver cluster, come and check it out. Bring your kids. There are going to be activities, games, like music, performances from kids at the schools. It is just an awesome, awesome, easy way to find out about what's going on in a cluster that is not far from you. Be you in Midtown, be you in Jackson. So really pumped about that event. So spread the word. And I know there's a flyer that's out there. I'm going to try to get it out in my next update. So, and I see Keisha nodding because I'm going to get her to help me with that too, which is great. But there's just so much energy that's been in the Carver cluster, but that's growing to further develop it. And looking at the uniqueness of their schools and all they have to offer and different programming around STEAM. So it's, again, going to be a great event. So I encourage you to come out. And I just had a moment that I realized I did not mention Burgess Peterson, BPA, and my call out to the Jackson feeder schools. So apologies there. I love BPA so much. So definitely don't want to overlook them. They'll be there tonight too. I will pause there and let family engagement give some updates. Appreciate them being on this call. So yeah, I'll let y'all take it away.
Good morning. Happy Friday, everyone. Just a couple of updates. We are offering or have been offering a family professional learning series of different topics, and they are the third Thursday of each month from 6 to 7. Crystal Saracen just placed it in the chat, the flyer. And so the next one is October the 19th. It's support and resources for friends and families of LGBTQ youth. And this will be facilitated by Gina DeVoe from the Center of Equity and Social Justice. It is virtual. You can register ahead of time or same day, and it is from 6 until 7 p.m. And then also, we're so excited. Next month is Family Engagement Month for the state of Georgia. And so there are a lot of great activities that you can find from our Georgia Department of Education. But we are actually hosting our third annual conference. We're coming back to face-to-face. It will be at Farrell High School November 12th from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. We will be pushing out a save the date next week. And just stay tuned for ways to register. Lunch will be provided for the event. So please come. It is for all employees, parents, children, teens. And so we look forward to having you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Keisha. Thank you, Keisha. That's awesome update. And thank you as well, Travis, for chiming in with the link to find out where everything is. And I love that, like one-stop shop to find out all the events that are going on throughout the system. So thank you. And thank you for the link to register. And I will follow up with you all so I can hopefully get this, because I cannot get it off the chat real quick, but I would love to include that in my update. So thank you all so much. Another thing I want to mention right quick before we get to questions, and Shannon, I see you asked, like, how do you make sure that you have your questions lined up? Y'all go ahead and put them in the chat and we'll work through them. Like, I will work through them with Keith. But before we get to that, I want to highlight that I participated in the Hope Hill Elementary School Walk and Roll to School event today, and it was so awesome. Seeing so many kids walk, ride their scooters, bike. It's an incredible community right there in the heart of a lot of awesome history and legacy continuing to be built next to a busy intersection as well. So it was great seeing the Atlanta Department of Transportation out there today and talking about helping create a safe route to school for kids in that area. And we know that that should be spread out throughout the system. And Councilmember Faruqi was out there too. So it was a great, everyone coming together to celebrate a fantastic way to get to school, especially when you live close by, which we had the benefit from many of our schools in APS being the heart of our communities, and kids can walk and bike and scoot to school. So wanted to mention that. And I also got out and read to pre-K classes this week at Barack and Michelle Obama Academy, Parkside, and Hope Hill. and it was so much fun, and another highlight of the importance of getting even more of our kids into pre-K and early learning. Looking forward to how we further develop that expansion with the city of Atlanta too, with the $5 million commitment the board made to early learning initiatives before pre-K with PAC and others who are really working on that. So we definitely have a role to push in. We know education best, and I'm looking forward to us making sure kids, even before they get to pre-K, have early education opportunities that are accessible and affordable and high quality. So with that, I will pause. I know we have a lot of questions. I'm going to move up the list, and Keith, I know you're out there. Can you help me?
Yep. And so are you ready for the community comment piece?
Yep, let's do it.
All right. So good morning, everyone. I'm sorry, my camera for some reason is not working this morning. But as always, how we conduct public comment, as Dion and Shannon has already done. If you have a question, we ask that you do raise your hand. That will put you inside of a queue. And then board member Howard will call your name. We do ask, because we do have a lot of people on the call just for an hour, we do ask that you get directly to your question so that we can be sure to hear from everyone and allow enough time for everyone to respond. And so, board member Howard, I will turn it back over to you now that we do have people in the queue to go through the list, and however I can assist, I'll be here.
Yeah, and actually on that note, could you assist me? Because I'm not seeing the exact queue.
Yeah, and so we can go with Dion first, and then after Dion, we'll move to Shannon and then Zachary.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Keith. I really appreciate it.
No problem.
All right. Hi, Dion.
Hi, good morning. Thank you
Good
again
morning.
for offering these to everyone. I have a question and then a follow-up to the answer based on that, based on your answer. So I think all of us want to know, based on Herring's performance to date, will you vote to extend Herring's contract?
So there is a process, evaluation process, and I'm glad Michelle's on the call, because the Accountability Committee, as we've talked about in the past or recently on a meeting, is developing the tool. We have an additional tool that we're putting in place for the evaluation.
No, I'm not asking about the tool. I'm asking about.
Let me finish, because that tool, we're going to be going through the process. Like, for any board member to respond right now on that would be not following the process. So we'll be going through the evaluation process in a timely manner. There is a process. So I certainly would not comment on that until going through a process of evaluating the superintendent based on evaluation tool that's looking at everything that we should be looking at as a board, aligned with our student outcomes focused governance model. So okay. That is my answer right now. And I encourage you all to stay tuned for that tool, because it will be made public. So everybody knows what she is being evaluated on and measured on in regards to, you know, the future.
So with that, then if we can speak about that tool, or you had said we use data as a flashlight. We have, you know, in the last 5 months, you guys have reported that absentee, we've had 37% of kids are identified as chronically absent. Mental health, we have 25% of kids who are elevated or extremely elevated for risk of developmental or emotional behavioral disorders. SATs, we got the lowest average of Metro Atlanta that was just reported. Reading data, interim data, you guys just reported new reading concerns in new subgroups, white, Asian, and gifted, for the fall map data that just came out. And milestone data that came out, we know 69% of 3rd through 8th graders are not proficient in reading, and 74% are not proficient in math. And then we have the concerns in HR with 20 new principals, of which I believe we only have 53 at traditional and some of those not partner, but charter. And we've had 5 resignations just this month in HR, including an executive director that was appointed by Herring. So we're all just wondering, if the data isn't there yet, if the tool hasn't been designed yet, what key performance indicators, and maybe you could speak of that since you can't answer the other question, what key performance indicators are you using if those aren't enough and we have 2 years of data?
Well, first of all, the fact that you have all that data is what's really important about the student outcomes focused governance. I mean, that's transparent, and that now we're really seeing all that. Everybody is, including obviously the public. With that, the tool is being developed, period. And then, yes, looking at that data, that plays a role obviously into the evaluation. The tool is being developed by the Accountability Committee. Their next meeting is the 27th of October. There's a time frame. There is, obviously it spells out the superintendent's contract and when we'll be doing the evaluation process. So yes, all that data definitely plays a huge role in it. And I am very appreciative of the fact that we're at this point as a system where everybody has access to that. And we're actively talking about that in all of our board meetings based on our goals and then our guardrails, which certainly focus, one of them in particular, on climate and culture and measuring all of that. So this
and
is
as
a
audit
continual
chair,
process.
as audit chair,
I'm gonna wrap this up.
Right,
Dion,
as audit
because there are
chair,
other
right. I'm
people
going to say this
with
because Katie,
questions.
you and I know that I am someone who's able to watch these meetings, and many of the people aren't on here. So you, as audit chair, know that in school year 2020, only 2 of 13 audits were done. In school year 21, only 2 of 13 high-risk area audits were done. This year, we've had 30 high-risk areas identified. And in the January report from the external committee who audited APS audit said the biggest concern was we do not have the staff to do all the audits that we need to do. That's number one concern. But ultimately, the
Dion,
audit committee is responsible in the Board of Education.
Hold on, because we have to move on to other questions. I am happy to talk with anyone about the work of the audit committee. Our next meeting is in December, and I will make sure to include that in my follow-up. I invite everyone to tune in online. We do have an issue right now where it is hard to retain people to do that work. That is a national problem in that line of work. So it's not a lack of wanting to do more audits. It's that it is hard to find people right now to staff it up to the point that to do even more. But we are continuing with the work that's been done. Connie Brown is an incredible internal compliance
That wasn't
auditor.
a question. That wasn't a question.
Let me, Dion,
Connie
this
has
is
never
my
been
turn.
a question.
Wait, let me finish. Let me finish about the work we're doing. So I'm happy to send out the audits we've done and the work that's continuing. I don't want anyone to think that work isn't happening because we don't have as many auditors if we'd like to have. So, and we're one of the few school systems that actually has this office. And I thank my predecessor for pushing on that. But I'm going to pause there. I will certainly include the information about the next audit meeting. I appreciate all your feedback. It is received. And I'm at some point in this meeting, Michelle can comment a little more on what the Accountability Committee is doing in regards to the evaluation tool. But with that, I'm going to go on to Shannon.
Thanks. And I just, as someone who can't attend all the meetings or pull open records requests like Ms. Dion, I just want to lift up some appreciation for her diligence. Because while I would love to tout the transparency of the APS, it really is parent activism that is allowing us to learn this really important information. And so just a lot of kudos for folks that are making the time, including board members here this morning. And I'm asking actually to zoom in a little bit, Katie, since you're going to be our new board rep for the new Inman K5, and kind of similarly, through the AJC and that one statement from Dr. Herring about the administrative leaves that people were put on, the community was never communicated with on what's happening now. Was there a hiring freeze? Why? When is that process? When is that investigation going to conclude? And are we starting over with the hiring process? Because now we're in, fall break and it's mid-October. And, I am really concerned as a parent of an incoming student at the school that we're in a failure to launch situation with no leadership intact. And as you stated, we're in a historic teacher shortage. We have educator shortages everywhere. And we were promised with this project that we were going to have what we needed to have a successful school. And step one was a principal in place that the community backed and was ready to work with. And now here we are, and we have heard nothing from the administration. And when there's an absence of communication, the community starts to fill in with rumors and piecemeal, and it's not healthy for the culture of this burgeoning school. So I would love to hear what the update is and when we, what's happening.
No, I hear you. And to go back real quickly, certainly appreciate everyone's participation and engagement. The data and the information we're sharing is out there for everyone. No one has to do open records request to get that information. And if there's something you think you can't find, email me. And then to your question about new leadership for the new K-5, absolutely hear you. That needs to be clearly communicated where we are right now. I'm certainly passing that along again to the superintendent that we need to get that information out because there was obviously a pause on the process. Looking forward to getting update on that today. So certainly, and Travis, you're on the call. I don't know if you have any information you can share right now. I know everyone is working and has been diligently on building the new K-5. There's a lot of support and excitement about it, but yes, the commitment was there would be a leader selected way in advance to help build the school. And certainly as board members, we are all committed to that. So making sure the community has that clearly explained to them where we are in the process. So received 100% on that. And just to make sure it's clear for everyone, because we talked a lot about the redistricting or some about the redistricting at the last meeting. The map is out there with City Council. It has not been approved yet. Everyone stay engaged. The board still has to take action. Sure, it'll match what the city has put out, but want to make sure everyone knows that's not finalized yet. And right now it'd be Virginia Avenue South. Not that that matters because I certainly care about every single community in the entire system, but that would actually be the line. But thank you, Shannon, for bringing that forward, especially about the K-5. I absolutely agree. We need to be really clear in our communication around where we are in the process. And Zachary, I know you've had your hand up. Thank you, Shannon.
Sure. So thanks again. And again, I'm going to echo everything that the two previous people have said. For parents to show up to meetings like this, it takes extraordinarily maneuvering the schedule, moving things around. I have 3 kids and I work full time and I volunteer in the schools. And so it's hard. I am not as proficient as Dion. I don't know where to get information. And I'm just learning public education. I've got a 1st grader, a pre-K, and an 8-month-old. So I have a vested interest in how these schools are run. And I can tell you from the time that we entered APS, I've been shaking my head countless times at this administration. And so I'm definitely interested in the timeline of the accountability tool. Because it seems that all of the action that is taken has been on the backs of activist parents shining a light on what is not operating correctly. With Herring specifically, when we were talking about the inequity in education, children falling behind during the pandemic, we were called bullies. We were called science deniers, even though many of us worked in the pandemic bedside in the ICUs. So some of the things that have affected us is the lack of transparency with the discussion and strategy of the 4th and 5th Academy. APS's stance on that this was going to solve equity when the study itself said the opposite. The favoritism in the hiring practices, the vetting or lack of transparency in the hiring practices. You've heard about it. Howard Middle School is a mess with the principal resigning. You've got, or being resigned, we don't know. You've got the lack of a selection of the principal for the new Midtown Cluster Elementary School. The list goes on and on. And the other thing, I mean, this totally sums it up perfectly. We have a hurricane coming into Florida, and APS closes everything. And then we see that the hurricane has changed directions. Atlanta had picture perfect weather, but everything was closed. We had no aftercare, soccer games were closed. And I know that that seems minimal. My point is that APS, when it needs to cover their own tracks, they can retract a decision. We learned that with the principal, where you all pulled the decision back in 24 hours. But when it comes to meeting children and parents' needs, that it's not a priority. I am in full favor of not extending her contract. I am in full favor of moving forward with this accountability. And the last thing that I'll say, and I do want to acknowledge the labor shortage. It doesn't matter where we go, we're experiencing it everywhere. So I understand that the audits may be significantly impacted, but in healthcare, we have the same thing. We have nursing shortage. We don't get to not take care of patients. The audits are there to protect our children, and they should move forward. So,
And thank you, Zach. And to clarify, things are moving forward. We're just not able to take some larger projects right this moment, but there are audits still in process. So I don't want anyone to think they're not. And please tune into audit meeting, you all. There's a lot of information provided there, and you can always watch after the fact. I hear you on everything you said.
Katie, do we have a timeline on the accountability tool and when parents should understand how and what how that works?
Michelle, do you want to talk about what you'll be discussing at your meeting on the 27th? Are you there still?
There, I'm here. I'm sorry. I don't mean to
No,
be.
you're good. I appreciate you chiming in, being a member of the accountability committee.
I don't mean to be dismissive. I've received a lot of feedback from the Midtown community about Howard and Inman, and I'm very concerned. However, all I can do is ask the administration where they're headed. And I think they're dragging their feet, to be quite frank, because it's been more than a week.
Michelle, and not to interrupt you, I'm so sorry. Could you talk about the accountability, the evaluation tool first that you all are developing through the accountability committee for the superintendent's evaluation? Could you talk about next steps on that? I think it's really important that we all understand the time frame there.
Sure, of course. Previously, it was very, I don't know what the right tool is. It was very constricted, if that makes sense. And with Dr. Herring, we have a little bit more of an open door. And I have tried to make it very clear that it's important for the community to understand, and my phone is dinging, so I'm going to turn it off. So I apologize. I think recently we've made it more apparent that it's important for the community to understand what some sort of board, that's not the right term, what sort of chart needs to be in place so that the community can understand where the superintendent is. And I just don't think we're just not quite there. It's something that we haven't done before, or at least while I've been on the board. It may have been done previously.
And clearly with the feedback we're receiving, it's critically needed. Like we all know that we have to have a tool that measures the superintendent, that people know how they're being evaluated. So appreciation that y'all are working through that, and how, again, it aligns with our student outcomes focused governance, as Dion brought up, and Shannon and others, everyone, seeing the data, understanding the data, and knowing how it all aligns with the evaluation, the actual tool. So
absolutely. Absolutely. And I don't want to take up the time on your meeting, but I just want to say that we have to have changes.
No, and I appreciate everything you shared. I do. So I'll include this in my follow-up, and I'm about to put my email in here. If you all could please email me if you want to be added to my distribution list. It's an email. I mean, certainly my cell phone will be included in that information, and you can reach out to me that way, but that's how I communicate, is through the email. So thank you, Michelle. And then I think Whitney, is Whitney next, Keith?
Yes, Whitney. And then we would go with Shay. I hope I'm pronouncing your name right.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I first want to echo what Zach said and applaud Dion. I mean, there's a lot of people on these calls that have a lot of other things going on, and Dion has done a Loman's work of doing this research, and I appreciate all the data that she just shared. I have a couple concerns with the audit committee and what's going into the accountability for the superintendent. So, I appreciate, the data that you shared around, spotlighting the test scores and everything, but, clearly that's the most important thing with the school district, but also the superintendent serves as an administrator and a leader for the district. And I have some concerns around the ethics and the culture, and how is the audit committee testing and evaluating what the culture and the ethics and the accountability are within the district. And then I also hope that part of this is it's pretty abhorrent around, and I'm just speaking from the Midtown cluster, but I assume that this is just not what's going on in Midtown, but what's gone on with the principal hiring and firing and resignation. And then now we're putting people on leave and we're paying them. And that's part of her responsibility as well. So I want to understand how the superintendent is being held accountable for culture, ethics, and also the staff. I mean, clearly the education of our kids is most important, but all of these other things are affected by that. And so how are we measuring that, and how are we holding her accountable for that? Because I agree with Zach, I don't think that her contract should be renewed. And then I would follow up with that, Katie. You said you can't comment on how you would vote. At what point can you comment at how you would vote? So
here, all those things are connected. Again, going back to the progress monitoring and really having that information and going through that and holding the superintendent accountable for the specific goals and guardrails. That's the point of them. Going back to the audit committee actually will be embarking on, let me back up. The internal auditor will be embarking on an audit of human resources for the entire system. The board approved that starting, or approved the contract for that to start, because we have to bring an outside consultant because we don't have enough in-house staff. I think we did that in July. So my understanding in talking with the internal compliance auditor is that it will start hopefully end of November. So that is the role the audit committee will be playing in supporting the work of internal compliance to do and system-wide audit, looking at HR and processes, which include, yes, the principal hiring process, because understandably, people have a lot of concerns right now. It is on the superintendent to explain the reason for the leave. I know people have asked questions about that, so certainly reach out to her office on that. But yes, all that's received, Whitney. And that—
But is she being held accountable for that kind of stuff as well?
And that's everything I'm saying, is holding people accountable. There's a process for all of this. So absolutely. And that's what we're doing as a board, and going through all the information that we should be going through and being focused on that.
And is that including the ethics and culture?
Climate and culture is absolutely our guardrail. Yes, it is.
Okay.
So Shay, I'm sorry. I apologize if I'm mispronouncing your name. Thank you for joining.
Hi, yeah, thank you for having us. My name is Che, hard CH. And yeah, I just wanted to acknowledge that a large system like a board of education, I think, is a system, and you are one person in this large, I guess, complex governance. And I wanted to ask for a little bit of more insight, maybe, like if you could teach us, I do have concerns over the principal too, and I'm sorry to keep hammering on it. It is confusing to me though, how we had 2 candidates is what we heard that went all the way through. And since one of them, the offer had been rescinded. It's a little confusing to me what happened to number 2 if we got that far. And although like hiring in any company is very complicated and a lot of different processes are in place, I was wondering if you could teach us or give us any insight into why it's not as simple as it seems.
No, great questions. And all that does fall underneath operations, which is underneath the superintendent. Our job as a board is to hold the superintendent accountable. And clearly something broke down in that process. And that is, just to get straight to the point, that's hers to own and hers to speak to. And our role as a board is, again, to hold her accountable. And of course, we provide feedback, which I know we all have been providing a lot of feedback. And yes, of course, we're all concerned that happened. I am looking forward to the human resources audit, so we understand better as the board what the superintendent and operations are being told needs to be addressed if there is something that isn't working, and making sure that the public has that information, because they have to have trust in the system. I mean, one of the most important jobs of the superintendent is hiring strong leaders for all our schools. Period.
Okay, thank you, Katie.
So I'm with you 100%. And, more information obviously will be coming out from the superintendent, but, yes, this falls all under her realm, and we will be holding her accountable, making sure, we have a transparent process, that, there are definitely trusted information going out to people around how we're selecting the best leaders. And clearly this process, there was a problem. So hear you. And thank you for joining. Dawn, how are you? You there? You're on mute if you're talking.
Yes, I'm here. Hi, Katie. Good morning, everyone.
Hi.
My name's Dawn. Hey, and I'm actually out of the Mays cluster, the Benjamin Elijah Mays High School Mays cluster. And I am here today, and I've actually joined a couple of your meetings. And I just want to say that, one, it makes me so happy to hear the activism and the parents and the community coming together. I will tell you, I am a little jealous because we used to have this in our community. And I will tell you, everything that you're talking about, the frustration about not getting information, about the frustration around how decisions are made, being kept in the dark. Literally, we've dealt with this for so many years. People get frustrated. There's a lot of apathy because they're like, why show up and ask when nothing's going to be done? We're not heard. So I'm really happy to hear that your voices have been effective. We are definitely with you. We're hoping that this spreads throughout all communities. We feel like all communities, all clusters should have the same type of voice to help shape the learning environment for their students. So again, Dawn, I'm typically probably easy to find, but definitely I'm willing to work with you guys because we are extremely concerned with the education that our students are receiving. Question I have, Katie, and any board member, is this graduation rate. I sent an email to the board yesterday. We're bragging about this graduation rate, but everything everyone's talking about the morale in the schools, talking about basically culture and climate, the absenteeism, like at Mays High School, regularly, we're having 10, 13, 14 teachers out. We can't find enough subs. They're splitting classes up, core classes. Students are not getting the education. There's so many self-guided classes, like kids' schedules. I literally was advocating for a student that had 3 PE classes in 1 year. So when I tell you it's low, it's mediocre, it's not working. And no matter how many times we beat ourselves up across, like we try to say, hey, this is not working for our students. They are not learning, and you're making excuses and you're covering for adults. It's just a really big concern. So my question to you, Katie, is around the graduation rate. It's increased, but do you feel like that increase actually correlates with actual increased learning, improved learning?
Great question, Dawn. No, I'm with you, and I'm proud of our graduation rate going up. Is important to have a high school diploma, no doubt. And I'm proud of all those students who've gotten one, 100%. Also, looking at our 3rd and 4th guardrail around college and career readiness and post-graduation preparedness, I want to know what our kids know when they graduate. Are they prepared for life, no matter what path they choose? So getting the data and information on that and continuing to push I think we need a life skills curriculum throughout the entire system to make sure our kids are fully prepared. All kids could benefit from that for sure. I know Gwinnett has one. But I hear you. I mean, we have to dive deeper, which is again why I'm glad we have our goals and guardrails, because that is what we've always go back to say, these are our priorities, and making sure, yes, we're looking at the growth, but even more than that, or beyond that, how our kids are prepared for life when they come out of school.
So Katie,
hugely important. And we're measuring those. And then I'm still, pushing in advance on getting that information as well.
and one thing I will tell you that years ago, when Sims was an associate superintendent, he actually used to deliver or provide us persistence data. I don't know if you're familiar with that. And that's basically what you're talking about. Basically, when the students leave, what do they do, and do they persist? Do they graduate? How long do they take? That stopped being shared with us. We cannot get that information, because what we're saying is that our kids, not only are they not persisting, but they're going to school for maybe college for a year, because they get into some school that has a rolling admission. They just let them in. They take out student loans and they're not there after a year, sometimes not after a semester. So now we have students with no degrees, but with college debt. When I tell you it's bad, we're graduating them into the underbelly of society. And I mean, I hope that you will help Erica Mitchell, our school board member, because we can't get any traction. There's violence in the school. Right now there's a video I'm sure you've probably seen where the assistant principal, Travis Chapman, an inappropriate chokehold, cursed at the student. He was enraged. But that's literally how children are treated. They're treated like prisoners. It's just not the right learning environment. And we can't get anyone to look at all the things, all combined, everything that everybody here is talking about, that's all happening there, but it's been going on for so long that literally it's just really pulled the school down. And we are looking for help from you and from other board members to join with Erica, because I will tell you, everyone, the reason why this is important to you, when people don't like Mays and they don't like Farrell or they don't like Douglas, they sneak into your schools. Everybody's trying to get into Jackson, North Atlanta, Midtown. So understand.
And Dawn, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I care about every single high school, no matter what. I mean,
and I appreciate that. I appreciate that.
Just know my focus is on making sure that every child, in high schoolers are children. They're still children. They're growing into adults, can thrive in life, period. That's why I ran for office. I'm a proud APS grad. None of this is new to me. I have experienced it in the schools I've gone to. And my kids, there are issues at Jackson too. Kids need a whole lot of support. So just know, I hear you. I talk with Erica. This entire board does. I am well aware that we have a lot of work and we've got to go deeper, period.
Thank you. Thank you. We need a quality leader at Mays. Thank you for your help. Bye, everyone.
I appreciate you. All right. And I know we have a lot of questions, and if we could just, move as quickly as possible. And I do want to touch on one thing that Abby brought up in the chat. When I was talking about the lines, that is about the city council lines, the district boundary lines that affect the Board of Education lines. The Board of Education districts are made up of the combination of council districts. So when they redistrict, it affects us. Want to make sure that's clear. All right, Melissa.
Hey, Katie. I understand what you were saying about the Inman hiring and, Dr. Herring's role versus the board's role, but I do have a question for you. If the board is who is to keep Herring accountable, is there a time when you guys step in and say this school is opening in August? We know that the transfer deadlines, the teacher contracts, all these things are happening in January. So if a leader is not in place by this point, like, when do you guys get activated? And I know y'all are asking her to give us an update, but when is there more pressure on her to do something?
Well, I mean, I think the pressure, and I feel no need to use the word pressure, but it has to be done ASAP based on the timeline that people who know about developing a school know is critical. That's not
exactly, but it feels like we're sort of there. So just hearing someone acknowledge that there should be some sort of.
I'm asking for the superintendent to make sure that we have an update now. I mean, we need to know where we are in that process. My understanding is not that it should stop the process of hiring a new leader. I don't see how they're directly correlated, but regarding the investigation around 3 individuals who were put on administrative leave. I hear that that should be done today. So
Okay.
I'm expecting news probably today.
Okay.
So I
Thank
hear you
you.
all. I'm pressing too, and I know my colleagues are as well. So thank you.
Okay.
Kimberly.
Good morning.
Kimberly.
I'm sorry. This is my first meeting, so I would like to introduce myself. I've been in District 1 for quite a long time. I've been a community educational advocate. I'm in the Carver cluster.
Great. Glad you're here.
Yeah, I'm in the Carver cluster now. I was formerly in the Minnie Jackson cluster. I'm a graduate of Frederick Douglass High School. My son went to Thurl High School. I have dealt with 3 superintendents. I've dealt with cheating scandal, and I have worked, whether they be with to fight the Amendment 1 for the governor taking over student achievement, for schools, and to understand the social dynamics of what a leader is and a superintendent. And what I am a bit concerned about, because I just decided to watch this meeting, I pretty much having to take off this morning because a lot of the parents that I represent, they cannot make these meetings. And when I hear about the community input, I've always asked, unfortunately, Katie, I haven't talked to you as much. I'm sorry, I've been a little busy. But we said community, are we talking about a lot of the Black community? Because a lot of my parents never are here, and that representation is necessary. So
absolutely,
the idea that information is even been thinking about going forward, the urgency that I'm hearing individuals speak of because of principals being hired or hiring situations across the nations as understanding human resources management processes and systems. The country is suffering with quality and processes and systems. So the school, unfortunately, is a school, but it's also a business in that aspect of hiring and metrics and things like that. But as far as the teachers, and I'm familiar with Erica Mitchell's district as well, because that's where I started most of the work that I do is not to defend or offend, but there are a lot of social components that play a major role in the effectiveness of what a teacher can and cannot do. From working on the ground with the students that have not learned. So I met 4 families whose children had not been in school for a year. They didn't enroll the kids in school. And the teachers are having to try to educate these kids. And I don't know if they have the resources. I don't know if, I haven't seen, I would say, a model that would realistically and idealistically give me confidence that we can achieve without a system, without a process, without this taking a minute, achieving these graduation rates and the equity and the quality in education. So I'm going to say kudos to anyone that is trying, because at this point, I think there needs to be an understanding ear of the social dynamics and components that we're dealing with, because on the city council level, dealing with truancy and kids and the sheriff and what's going on in a lot of these communities. And I think the mayor's office has a relationship with the city of Atlanta, and there are some resources. I know you mentioned life coaching and life skills. I grew up in vocational learning and vocational track learning in school, which we do not have right now. And that is a major role for individuals that cannot take college prep classes to learn. So when you talk about metrics and valid metrics and graduation rates, if we're teaching children college prep skills and they're vocational learners, then those numbers when it comes to academic success, when it comes to after higher learning, because I watch NAEP, I keep up with their scores for the all of their scores. I keep up with their reading and their writing, and I'm monitoring these scores. And it's not necessarily an indicator of, I feel it's a rigorous curriculum. It's a lot of research base done behind it. And it's not as simple as a superintendent, or it's not as simple as a teacher being in the classroom. So I just want to say that hopefully over the next couple of weeks, I will send you an email and be communicating with you some concerns of support. But that support may appear to be critical, but sometimes we have to identify deficits to be able to fill them. But I know and I believe that you guys are doing, I voted for you, that you're doing the best that you can. But this is unfamiliar territory and uncharted waters for everyone, for us to have to recover from COVID and to have to staff. I'm seeing this across the nation, even with Delta. This is a real thing. So we're just not, we can't just come back from COVID and having lost teachers and having lost principals and say, hey, we're just going to go back to the system. That's not realistic. And it's not because I'm very objective, because I need all kids. Half of my parents that I represent are not on this call. They won't ever be on this call because I don't know why, but there's that. So I just wanted to say hi, introduce myself. I appreciate the contributions that all of you have made. Thanks to the person that provided the data. I heard that Asian, I don't think I heard anything about the African-American community data. I don't think I heard that. I think that was missing. So that is very pertinent data that I would want to be interested in. But you did say that it is accessible, and I will email you and I will look for that data, and I will here out try to keep up with it so I can help the community that I represent be more involved in this process. So thank you, and thank you everyone, and thanks for your comments.
Yeah, no, thank you so much, Kimberly, and certainly do email me. I'd love to connect because I make it a point to get out in the Carver cluster, and I'm looking forward to the block party in particular and meeting lots of new families because I'm all about meeting people where they are. This is only one piece of my engagement. There's so many ways we've got to be reaching our kids. We have partners, we have resources. Mental health support is a huge priority for me, and pushing in on how the district really connects all the pieces we have, not only to meet the mental health needs of our students, that's separate from behavioral health, as well as our educators and our staff. Like, we should have therapists in our schools that our kids can see during the day, and our educators can also see after hours or whenever it's convenient for them. It's possible, other school systems are doing it, and I'm pushing in hard on that one. And also the variety of pathways that have to be accessible to all our students is critical. And some things we did in the past, I'm a proud APS grad, where there are just some basic things that were in our high schools that really worked. And that's the whole point of progress monitoring also, is looking at all of it. You look at the data around literacy and numeracy, but you're also looking at, what are the realities for our kids on the ground? Like, are they in an environment where they're safe and supported and able to learn, and they have a variety of ways to get to where they want to be for their vision and dream in life and to thrive? So couldn't agree with you more. And we've got to be transparent with all the data on everything, which includes, are you really prepared when you leave high school for life? All right. I know we're getting close to 10. I'm not going to cut us hard on this, but I have something at 10:15.
Yep, and that's what I was gonna say, Board Member Howard. So we will hear from Kate and Charmaine will be our last two speakers, and then we'll allow you, and then if other board members have any closing remarks, to give those at those times. So we'll just hear from our last two speakers, which is Kate and Charmaine.
Right, and thank you, Kimberly. If y'all don't know about NAEP, look it up. It's it's deeply informative and gives you the nationwide view. Thank you. Yes, Kate.
Hey, Katie. Thanks for doing this. So just to speak to the Howard situation, which has been a mess, the Inman situation, which has been a mess, and to your point about Herring's, one of her primary responsibilities is getting qualified, good people in principal roles, which I think by all accounts, she has demonstrated a pretty clear failure to do that. So I feel like there's a lot of window dressing and kind of skirting of the issue, and accountability and audit commission and culture evaluation and so on and so forth. But what seems fairly clear to everyone is that she's been unable to do the main job here, which is to get qualified good people in these critical roles. So my question with her renewal coming up is, understanding there's all this stuff going on behind the scenes, I would like to hear directly from you, Tamara and Michelle, on where you stand on that renewal, so we can get just kind of to the heart of the matter about where we're headed with the superintendent's renewal, and just hear directly from each of you.
Well, and I appreciate your question, Kate. I feel like we've discussed that a lot during this call, and I want to hear from Charmaine too. I'll just say, and I hope my colleagues are along with me on this, that we have a process, we find that process. Clearly they can say differently with you or whoever on this call about their feelings around where we are right now. But I want to hear from Charmaine, and then if we have time, Tamara, Michelle, if you want to provide your feedback on Kate's question. But I've made it quite clear that I will be going through the process with my colleagues on the evaluation superintendent. And also, that's another reason it's critical. You understand how we're measuring the superintendent with the tool that certainly can be shared with the public.
Okay,
So,
I just want to add, we went through the whole situation with the Howard principal where we appealed, many of us appealed to Herring and we never heard back from her. We all got one blanket statement that didn't address any of it. You know, the buck has to stop somewhere, and clearly it doesn't seem to really stop with Herring. And so it stops with you all. And so I'm just concerned that we're getting the same kind of smoke and mirrors and can't get a straight answer. And we have to go through the process.
No, I don't think that's smoke and mirrors. I think I'm being really straightforward with you. Our job is to evaluate the superintendent when that evaluation time period is on. Like that tool, we'll be using that tool to evaluate the superintendent based on the time frame of the contract too. The superintendent's job is operations. Our job is to hold the superintendent accountable. So that's very clear. There's no smoke and mirrors here, but I haven't gone through the evaluation process with all this information, and we're not at that point yet. But I have absolutely heard you. I've heard everyone in the Midtown cluster. I am fully aware of your frustration, and I completely understand it. So it's been received. I certainly pass on information to the superintendent and feedback, as I know all my colleagues do. And yes, the buck stops with her when it comes to operations of the district, 100%, and we hold her accountable for what the reality is. So I appreciate what you're saying. I just want to make sure we're very clear on everyone's role and that we are certainly holding the superintendent accountable, but there is a process. Charmaine.
Hi, thank you, Katie, and I'll try to be fast. I know that we're at time here. What I wanted to ask about, and I echo the concerns that everybody's expressed here about the superintendent and the process. I wanted to talk about a specific concern I have about what has been implemented by the superintendent, I guess, administration in terms of curriculum at Howard Middle School. And I believe it's not just Howard Middle School. I understand it's district wide. It's the Amplify software program that's been mandated as required curriculum for ELA and math classes. My understanding is it was first implemented by Dr. Herring last year, and I had heard parents expressing concern about it last year, but my child was not yet in middle school, so I didn't have any firsthand experience with it. I attended last week's curriculum night at the middle school, and I clearly became one of those concerned parents at that time. It was pretty shocking. My son's math teacher made it clear that she provides very little instruction, that the students are expected to basically learn on their own and their computers through the program. And it's clear that it's not because this is how she would choose to run her classroom, but that this is what is mandated. And when a parent expressed concern that when they're doing this on the computer programs, they don't even receive feedback through the Amplify program, the math teacher said, yes, there is no feedback. So basically the students are forced to figure out math on their own. And when they get the problem wrong, they have no idea why, because there's no feedback. And, we're talking about growth concerns and progress of students. How can this be a program that's mandated if there's not real teaching and there's not feedback? Similarly with ELA, because it's the required curriculum, students are not reading books and analyzing them and discussing them as a class. They're basically relegated to reading excerpts of the books and on the computer and then answering questions about the excerpts. And to me, what was really apparent from curriculum night is the passion and excitement that my son's science and social studies teachers had when they spoke about their curriculum, because it's not based on Amplify, and they even expressed that, which was completely different from the math and ELE teachers when they were talking about the curriculum, as they were just basically talking about something they're forced to implement. And it was only when they talked about side projects that they do on top of Amplify that the excitement came out. So, I have so many questions and concerns about this, but I guess what I'd really like to ask is, why is this the software program being mandated by the district? Is there a plan to discontinue it? Because my understanding is it's like pretty much universally disliked by parents, teachers, and students. In fact, I've heard that students at Howard are starting a petition to get rid of the program. And can we at least, at the very least, make it optional and not mandatory for teachers?
So the first thing that really comes to my mind, well, first of all, thank you for sharing all this feedback, because firsthand what the experience is like for your student. And that's critically important. I think that you need to put this in some form or fashion into Let's Talk, and talk directly with someone at the district level about your experience. In the beginning, there was a lot of feedback that we heard around Amplify. And of course, all this is under the superintendent. I am not an educational expert, but just paying close attention and hearing feedback, obviously from parents, sometimes students, and then educators, that the rollout was terrible. Whereas my kids were at King and it wasn't the same experience. I'm just sharing feedback with you as a parent in APS too. Which goes back to support from the district around a new implementation of a program, and of course, why we're doing it. Amplify is used nationwide. I mean, we're not like a rogue district on this, but we also talk about the autonomy with our schools to be able to do what their students need, what they know their students need. But at the same time, making sure there's consistency and we're using things that are proven. There's evidence these things work for our students. I do think it would be great to hear what feedback you get from the district around what they're doing to address the issues you're bringing up. And I think you need to go straight to the source. There's some great people in central office who are working on supporting these methods of teaching and programs. But like you said, I mean, allowing teachers flexibility to do, definitely the one-to-one learning without a device. And I know my students have had that, so I know it's possible. So I would love it if you would ask that question through Let's Talk and then follow back with me, because I'd like to hear what feedback you get. But I think yours is critically important to understanding why the district has done this and how they're supporting it to make sure it's working for our students. And when we are seeing growth in our MAP data, I'm not going to correlate that directly back to Amplify. I don't have the evidence to do that, but certainly seeing that, there are things that are working, but again, getting that feedback directly from educators and students, what their experience is and what the reality is critically important. So I took notes. I will follow up with people as well, but I would love for you to do that and Let's Talk and then follow back up with me. That'd be great.
Yeah, I will definitely put it in. Thank you, Katie. I will definitely put it in Let's Talk. And I mean, I think if this could be raised by you, I mean, I see people responding in the chat. This is not just coming from me. I mean, I am one of tons of people that have this concern. I just happened to realize it like as of last week, how bad it is. And hearing it directly from the teachers because we had the opportunity. So, I mean, this, in my understanding, is this has been very much a concern since the program has been implemented. So it seems to, I mean, this community also praises good decisions and when things are positive, right? So it's not like everybody just complains all the time. I mean, this seems to be a failed experiment. And, I will express that, but if it could be messaged, again, I don't know all the details of how the inner workings are, but my point in expressing at this meeting is if it could be talked about at the board level too, because to me, this is a decision it's district wide. This is not a Howard Middle School issue specifically. It's across the board and it's being mandated that way. And as a result, the teachers don't feel like they have the ability to go outside of it. They have to.
And we have talked about it at the board level. It has been discussed at board meetings with progress monitoring, and there's been some in-depth conversation and discussion around, how educators feel about it, how it's further developing, being real about the rollout of it, which wasn't great, especially, just based on the feedback I'm receiving at Howard. So we definitely have talked about it at board meetings and asked a lot of questions, but I will definitely raise your concerns again. And it's a continual conversation because, again, this is part of our monitoring to say, okay, what is working, what is not. And I see someone put in the chat that Let's Talk doesn't work. If you don't get a response back from Let's Talk, let me know. Because it is an important tool and it connects people with the right people at the district level to answer their question. That's a huge piece of us being responsive as a system. So if you don't get a response, let me know. It is 10:08 and I really appreciate everyone being on this call today, for your continual engagement, for sharing feedback directly with me. You've got my email, reach out anytime, and let me know, even better ways I can engage with a cross section of people throughout District 1. I appreciate you being on the call, Kimberly, and you speaking up. definitely want to connect with you because this is a very engaged group of people, and I appreciate you all, but I fully recognize there are a lot of people who can't be on this call. So know that I am out and reaching out to people in numerous ways. So thank you as always. Tamara, Michelle, do you want to say anything?
I do. If I could. I just wanted to thank everybody here for being forthcoming, for sharing your concerns, for reaching out. Thank you. I put my email and my phone number in there. And I want you to know that, I understand the community's crisis of confidence at this point, given everything that you've been through. And, like Katie said, I look forward to the measurement process. The evaluation tool, I know that we haven't, clarified it yet because it's being created, but in the past, I think what Michelle was saying is that, it was very secret by contract. And so I know that was a frustrating thing for a lot of the community, with their decision with the last superintendent. I mean, I don't know what went on there because of the way, the nature of how the tool was not disclosed. And what they're trying to do is create a tool that has a more transparent forward community facing piece of it, but also has, a more private HR piece of it. And they're trying to marry the goals and guardrails, as they're spelled out in our student outcomes focused governance piece with the evaluation tool. And I look forward to that being completed and whenever, following through with the process.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that so well, Tamara. I really appreciate it. And I hope you all appreciate that we are a unit on this process as a board, that this is extremely important, the transparency around it too. All of us want to make sure the public is aware of how we're measuring the superintendent's performance based on the piece that can be shared with the public that, like Tamara brought up so well, has not been the case in the past. So know that every single member of the board is very focused on that. And again, how it aligns with our student outcomes focused governance and our goals and guardrails, which if you don't know them, I will certainly include them in my follow-up. So thank you, Tamara, for wrapping it up with that piece as well. And we hear you all, we do. So thanks again, everyone. I hope you all have a great weekend and fall break. I hope everyone actually gets a little bit of a break. I know I'm looking forward to at least a day of it. So thank you all again. And yeah, reach out to me if you're not already on my distribution list. Just email me and I will happily add you. Appreciate everyone on this call, my colleagues, and then of course, Keith for being amazing support and everyone in family engagement. So thank you all so much and have a great weekend. Take care.
All right, thank you. Have a great weekend, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Really appreciate you all.